I guess there's no day when you let the algo sleep, so to say, but you really are looking at for new ways of improving the system that you have.
Yeah, I think it's also important to remember that short-term power markets probably will never become like financial markets because there is an underlying physical commodity. I think the biggest role that Habitat had in this joint venture was really educating the financial trading side on how power markets work and why they work the way they do.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes there are some actions that seem nonsense, right? Like why would that player trade this big volume at this kind of price? Or why not wait? We know that there are certain trends that everyone can see in the markets. Why are these players not looking at those trends? And there can be some compliance reasons.
Welcome to Time2Talk, the Time to Market Energy podcast, where we discuss interesting developments with experts from all over the industry. I'm so grateful that you said yes to our inquiry to join us for this episode. Also because I am just such a big fan of women in the energy industry and who really do a lot to create or just climb the ladder, so to say, and have this amazing career that you have. And I think a lot of women consider you as a role model.
Thank you very much, Eszter, for having me on the podcast.
Can you just tell me, because I noticed that you have several titles. So you are today Executive Director of Trading Performance at Habitat and Director at Quark Energy Trading, right?
That's correct.
So how do you, manage these two roles? And maybe, before you dive into the Quark and the split between Habitat and Quark, you could just tell a little bit about, also from the leadership perspective, how do you, run these two roles?
I joined Habitat to set up their trading desk. So it was very early days of the company. They had like few data scientists that were building the models to optimize batteries. Then it was just the UK. It was few data scientists focused on market data and optimization models. They needed someone that gave them a bit of like the market angle, and that's what I did. And then when we were ready, we built the trading desk. We started optimizing the assets. So that was my first role. Then I started focusing more on like the opportunities in trading. So I was then head of trading development. So I was looking at opportunities in different markets, different products that we could trade. So different opportunities for the assets. I started supporting more and more the CEO and became director of operations. So I was very much a generalist, obviously coming from the trading angle, but really trying to help the CEO, understand what the challenges in different areas of the business were and how to solve them. And now, actually, when I came back from maternity leave gave me a bit of time to rethink what I wanted to focus on. Then I kind of slightly tweaked my role, becoming executive director of trading performance. That means that I'm very much focused on trading. That was mostly the case also before, but now it's more like formal. And I'm really helping the teams. Well, we have teams in different geographies, so with slightly different functioning and different focus, but I'm really helping them be very sharp, being the top performance in the market. So make sure that from the operational perspective and the training perspective, the strategy perspective, they have everything that they need in terms of processes, in terms of strategies, tools, benchmarks to really succeed. At the same time, I'm also director of Quark. So Quark was founded in 2020 as a joint venture between Habitat Energy and 𝐜𝐴𝐺𝐴 Investments. So 𝐜𝐴𝐺𝐴 Investments is a company that has been operating in financial markets as a high-frequency trader for the past 20 years. So really, we saw an opportunity to bring the expertise in algorithmic trading that has been there for many years in financial markets into energy markets where algorithms are more of a new thing. We started seeing the first API in 2012, but really we started seeing numbers pick up just in the last few years. Quark has a completely different mission, just fully algorithmic trading in short-term power markets. I helped set up the company at the beginning. we were, not sure about like the future of this company. We just set up, we thought it was a good idea. We set up the company, and then it was just me from the Habitat side and a couple of other people on the Liger side, putting together market access and making a business plan and deciding what markets we need to start with, who we need to hire and stuff like that. And so I think at the beginning, it was very much of a side project. So it took maybe a bit over a year to really get it standing. And then when we started hiring, actually, the pace picked up a bit. It also meant that, while I kept keeping oversight and providing support and advice where it needed, there was also like a core team in Quark that handle the day-to-day, and I didn't need to be involved on the day-to-day. So how I handle the two things, obviously internally, I agree, I spend around 20% of my time on Quark, but really the day-to-day is Habitat. And then with the Quark is more like, if there is something specific where I can add value, or if there is a board meeting to prepare, or if there is a business plan to make, or if we have to actually make an executive decision on what next market to access, that's when really I step in. But my main role is actually Habitat.
It's an amazing career so far, and congratulations on the new role. But when you're on maternity leave, then you really have sort of also the time to reflect on, okay, what have I been doing so far, and where is actually my happiness laying and my passion, and then just grow that area. And just really great to see that you have found that place for you. And so I suppose you are sort of the European voice of both Habitat and Quark in that sense. I'm not sure how familiar were the colleagues from Habitat previously with the European markets, for instance.
I think particularly in Habitat we mostly have we have some international members of the team, but it was mostly like UK based team members. So maybe they're not like UK nationals, right? But they have spent a good part of their career in the UK. And I find the UK very much focused on the UK. Like UK is an island, obviously interconnected with the rest of Europe. But I find there are like a lot of companies in the UK that don't really venture out to continental Europe. As I mentioned earlier, we are not active in Europe as Habitat, but obviously like some of our clients are sometimes interested in what's happening on the other side of the pond. Or anyway, when trading the UK, it's quite useful to have an understanding of what's happening in Europe, fundamental wise, price wise, because the markets impact each other. So for sure, I brought that kind of knowledge to the company. When it comes to Quark, Quark is active in various markets, specifically UK, Germany, Netherlands, Belgium. So while we started in the UK, because that was the knowledge that existed already in Habitat, we expanded beyond that. I find, however, that markets change a lot. That's what everyone that works in energy
about
says. Every day is different. Every year is different. That's why we keep staying in this business, because it's so exciting. So I must be honest, I have not touched the European market since 2018. Right? Until 2018, I was actively trading all of the European markets. And so while I have some good understanding on how these markets work, and now if I visit the Quark office, I stand behind traders, and I'm very curious to see how the market dynamics work now. And obviously I have access to the data of the markets, and I'm up to date with like the various like regulatory and structural changes in the markets. If I sit at the desk and try to trade Germany, I'm sure I would lose money. So I'm not trying. I'm not claiming that I'm the market expert in that sense anymore.
That is totally understandable, and it's also a strength to recognize. Okay, well, it's changing too fast, and that's totally all right. And I was wondering, Eleonora, if we now focus on Quark a little bit. Do you see many other parties like yourself in the markets? I suppose you're, a high frequency trader, and what works well and what, doesn't work as well as you were maybe expecting it.
When it comes to, publicly available, objective data, we only distinguish between manual trading and automated trading. Right? So the orders that a human is submitting and the orders that an API is submitting. But when it comes to APIs, there are all sorts of APIs out there, right? Either provided by third-party vendors or built-in. There are some APIs that simply execute whatever the trader inputs. So a trader says, oh, I want to buy 50 megawatts up to 50 pounds, and the algorithm just places the order and possibly also manages it in the market. Or there are like some APIs that are smarter. They have models that provide inputs, and they with no human intervention, they just open and close positions. So while we know for a fact that there is a huge number of APIs operating in the market, and I was looking at numbers yesterday, I think like 97% of the total orders in the FX market, for example, come from API. So it's a huge number. And then around 70% of the volumes are actually executed through APIs. We don't really know how many of those APIs are like smart and high frequency trading like APIs, and what are like very like simplistic execution systems. But looking at the market, we see a lot of activity, definitely a lot of algorithms, and we can see that some are faster than others and some are like smarter than others. So I think there's definitely quick catching up. So a lot of trading houses out there that maybe were just buying some off-the-shelf solution, they're now trying to build something in-house to really be top performers. So definitely the competition is increasing by the day, but there are still a large number of players that are either manual or really with a pretty simplistic approach to automated trading. So when I speak to the other founding company of Quark, right, Liger, they are still very surprised by how immature this market is compared to financial markets. But they definitely see, like in the 3 years that we have been active in the market, they definitely see the evolution almost by the day.
Thank you, Eleonora. That is really interesting to also see. So I guess, the unique challenges running, with a pure high frequency strategy in the physical markets is really trying to, tweak your strategy, keep up with the market, grab that, millisecond, and then just stay ahead. I guess there's no day when you let the algo sleep, so to say, but you really are looking for new ways of improving the system that you have.
Yeah, I think it's also important to remember, though, that short-term power markets probably will never become like financial markets because there is an underlying physical commodity, right? And I think the biggest role that Habitat had in this, joint venture was really educating the financial trading side on how power markets work and why they work the way they do. So sometimes there are some actions that seem nonsense, right? Like, why would a player trade this big volume at this kind of price? Or, why not wait? We know that, there are certain trends that everyone can see in the markets. Why are these players not looking at those trends? And there can be some compliance reasons, right? Firms, particularly utilities, might have some strict mandate in terms of the kind of positions that they are allowed to leave to imbalance. So maybe in case of an outage, they have to close 50% of the imbalance within 5 minutes, right? So no matter the price, they're just forced by the internal mandate. So I think the component of like manual traders or like not so smart maybe algorithms will stay there. They're just like different reasons. That is not like the pure economical optimization in the market, but maybe there is like a compliance aspect, a risk management aspect, underlying physical position to manage. I think it will be quite interesting, right, to see how the market will evolve with like more and more smart algorithms in there, but all at the same time also a number of like more traditional players that maybe will step up their game, but will still need to stick to certain parameters that are not the algo traders ones.
So what do you think is the current framework for algo trading and market making, is it well set, or is it too restrictive, or maybe it's a framework that still allows for some opportunities? How do you see it?
Algo trading now is being covered by REMIT 2.0, and there are some mentions in the code of conduct of Apex of what to do with algorithms. And well, I'm talking about Apex because that's where we are most active. But obviously there are also other exchanges. There are some forms that you have to fill in if you are an algo trader, and you have to pass a conformance test with your API, and you have to just declare that you are doing certain testing with your algorithm. The way the exchanges, the short-term power exchanges were built, definitely was not for algorithms, right? So algorithms are almost like guests in a market that was thought for other reasons, for other players. I think there is a awareness at the exchange level that they need to upgrade their infrastructure, and they are continuously doing that, making sure that the infrastructure can handle an increasing number of algorithms, hence an increasing number of orders, a lot of like small trades rather than like few large trades that historically we had. I don't think the framework is very restrictive necessarily, but for sure, like there are some elements that are not quite there, right? They are not like fit for purpose for like extremely fast algorithms. And from I don't want to speak on the behalf of the exchange, but I would imagine that also as an exchange, you want to find the right balance between enabling all of these smart, fast players, but also making sure that the main reason why the exchange exists, that is like balancing the physical system, is still working well, right? And while more players, faster players, make the market more efficient, the price converges faster to the fair price. You still want to make sure that also utilities that need to handle positions for physical reasons are not like pushed out
Correct.
of the market because they're not like up to date with technology, for example.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky balance, right?
But okay, now if we zoom out a little bit and just as a subjective opinion, what do you think? What improvements should the industry as a whole make to facilitate more algo trading and market making?
There are like I think lots of conversations happening on the side with the exchange, with their technical teams, discussing what happens in financial markets. Could this happen also in energy markets? Does your infrastructure enable these suggested improvements, or like what's the blocker? I think it's a very delicate conversation. There is definitely room for fast players to operate in this market.
Then again, so okay, obviously you don't need to be concrete, but just I love always to bring out my crystal ball here. Crystal ball. How is the algo trading evolving in the next 5 years? What do you think?
There will be more and more of that. We are definitely seeing increasing liquidity in all of the markets, really, where APIs are active. So my general thought, and I might be wrong, is that there are so many trading houses, right? And after the energy crisis a few years ago, that it was kind of understandable. Oh, everyone is trying to chase these big spreads. Now the big spreads or the big volatility is not quite as strong as it has been, right? But still, you see these new companies flourishing and spin-offs from larger trading companies. I'm not sure that there is space for everyone really in this market. At some point, some of them will need to step back, like get out of the market or scale down, just because while liquidity can increase with like increasing liquidity, increasing speed, increasing efficiency, spreads tighten. I'm just wondering if there is, the intrinsic value of the market is enough for more and more players. Well, either everyone takes a smaller slice, or actually some of the better players take bigger slices, and the ones that cannot really compete will get out. So algorithms will continue being there. I'm sure there will be some more regulation around those, right? At the moment, most of the regulation exists in financial markets. And so physically settled markets like short-term power markets are not touched by most of the regulations. It will be interesting to see whether, for example, Eszter or some other regulators will want to bring more regulation also into these financially settled markets. Because if actually the vast majority of trading happens through algorithms or high frequency trading, actually, why not impose similar regulations. So we will see.
Yeah, we will see. It's indeed, it goes so quickly. Really, it can, from week to weeks to months, so many things happening. Just really, as you said, you have to be really fit to keep up. And well, let's see who survives. Maybe not many people know, but you are also a member of the 𝐴𝐵EC Spot Exchange Council. Can you tell us, please, for those people who don't know, what is 𝐴𝐵EC Exchange Councilship about, and how does this council influence the market design?
The Exchange Council is an elected body with a 3 years mandate that should represent the variety of members of the market. Right, so you have aggregators, you have traders, you have utilities, you have TSOs that all are represented in the council. It's a body that has like oversight on what happens on the exchange, has voting power for new products, new markets, new rules and regulations for the market, and also supports with the governance. So, for example, we elect the head of the market surveillance team at the beginning of our mandate, and we support the exchange if there are some issues to solve, suggesting solutions or challenging the proposed solutions of the exchange based on the experience in the different companies. Just making an example, and this is not like a real example, but that's something could happen in the exchange, right? They in the exchange council, the exchange comes and says, oh, we need to change API for intraday continuous market, and we are in progress with the works, and we plan on a full switch from the old version of the API to a new version in 2 months' time.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe the members of the council will say, well, based on our development cycle within the company, like 2 months is way too short. We need at least 2 months to collect the specifications, and then our dev team needs to go out and make the changes, and then we need to do the testing. We need at least 6 months. And so then the exchange would like collect these views, probably a vote of like, okay, do you all agree that we need 6 months, and then maybe adjust their plans, right? So this is like a very simple example. It can be when it can be something also more complex, right? Like changing rules on around the auctions, around the market, or like suggesting new products and stuff like that. So yeah, we meet quarterly in different parts of Europe. The exchange brings forward the topics that need approval or need to be discussed, and also the members can raise topics, right? If, for example, if we talked about algorithms, or if I have a concern that there are like too many algorithms in the market, and for example, I'm a manual trader and I really struggle to do my job, I will raise it, and then there will be a discussion with the exchange, with the other market participants. And I think that's also quite interesting, right, to participate in those conversations, because then you really see different angles of the sector. Absolutely. And the different views. Sometimes discussions then lead to like some formal actions or some voting, and sometimes if there is no traction, or if the discussion is deemed not relevant for the council, then obviously it falls. But yeah, definitely a lot of interesting topics being discussed. After every quarterly meeting, there is a press release, so the high level topics are discussed. And it's not that I cannot talk about what happens in the council, but you cannot go out and say, oh, this member of the exchange said this. So it's there is definitely some sensitivity around.
Absolutely. Don't worry, I'm not gonna, make you or ask you to go deeper into the topics. So that absolutely respect it. So I appreciate that. And you basically answered so many of the questions I already asked. So I'm just, curious. And what is the ratio of representation in the council for like the traders and utilities? Is there like, and how? And I guess this leads to also my follow-up question on how did you get involved, and what does representing like Quark involve for you?
Top of my mind that I don't remember the numbers, but the ratio should represent the kind of the ratio of like members in the exchange, right? So if I remember right, like the TSO has a limited number of seats because the number of TSOs is limited compared to the 500 members.
Commercial parties, yeah.
Yeah. So then there is depending on how, I think aggregators probably are the smallest group because the number of aggregators in the exchange is not that large, and then there are obviously a number of utilities, and utilities there are not that many utilities, so aggregators and utilities have a limited number of seats. That's because although utilities are large, the number of utilities across Europe is not as high as trading houses. So then the highest, largest group represented is actually the trading houses, and I've been elected in that group as a Quark representative. What does it mean for Quark? It means that we we can actively participate in debates about the future of the exchange, and we can bring forward proposals, particularly coming from the financial world. We have a lot of like first-hand experience in financial markets that we can then very practically present to epics and say, oh, can we do the same in this exchange? Obviously, if we were not part of the council, we could still bring forward these proposals. I find the exchange quite open to conversations also outside of the council. I think the council is useful because you just get to meet first in person a lot of the members of the exchange, and then you know who to go to for certain questions or certain concerns. So I guess it helps. With really networking helps directing the conversations in a more efficient way. But even if I was not there, we could still reach out to our account manager at Apex and say, we have a problem on the API side or on the technical side or on the compliance side. Can you please help us?
I guess, regardless, I mean, you are active in the market and you are always in touch with other, commercial parties, trading houses. So in that sense, the struggles more or less people have, and you still sort of, in one way, represent them as well, I suppose. I mean, everybody wants, to have a proper setup, also to, balance everything, all the trades, obviously, and still in a transparent and fair manner. So, I do believe that, while, you're on the Quark side, you're still maybe represent a whole bunch of other commercial parties in the industry as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that the people that elect you feel a bit like you should also represent them. And going to your other question, that is how I got involved. Someone at the exchange just reached out to me. Like, I don't want to call myself green quota. I don't like the pink quota. I don't like the concept of pink quotas. But you asked about representation of the different parties. As you can imagine, Exchange Council, when it comes to diversity, it's not very diverse. I think we are like 3 women out of 30. Which is, fine. I think it's a reflection of actually the sector, like the energy sector still doesn't have a ton of women, which, I still wonder why. Like it's a quite, actual sector, very interesting. And you don't need to be like a super traditional trader, kind of Wall Street style to in there. But anyway, that's what it is. Not a ton of women in the sector. Actually, Epics mentioned to me like, oh, we don't really have a lot of representation of women, for example. So would you consider putting your name forward? And over the years, I think I built a decent network with other trading houses, with other traders. So I then I guess knew enough people to ask to vote for me, and because that's the thing, right? You have to be voted, and yeah, I got elected together with a bunch of other people.
So there you are. I mean, that's your answer. The industry trusts you, and then they do believe that you are a fair and proper representation of everybody. So well done, Eleonora, on that. What's the biggest challenge? What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the industry right now, maybe, and in the future?
That's an easy question. So,
Sorry.
Well, as we said, lots of things are changing and evolving in this market. We have more algorithms, more liquidity, more volatility comes and goes, I guess. More like renewables, if we think about like the physical side of things, and all of these evolutions can be challenges for some people and opportunities for others. If we think specifically about, for example, more renewables coming online. And, this has been happening for 10 years. And, probably we have been hearing for 10 years that, renewables are creating problems. There are negative prices. And, then you have like price spikes in the evening after the solar sets because you have like expensive plants that need to come online for a short period. So all of that stuff. So this is a problem in a way. The grid these days is hard to manage, but there are like ways to solve it. And one is to have flexible assets, so batteries, for example, on the system. And I think that's one of the main reasons why Habitat really set itself to do what we are doing. Right, batteries or flexibility is needed to support a grid with increasing number of renewables. So it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. And I think there are like a lot of market players that are like jumping on this opportunity. The other big thing that we also discussed earlier is more algorithms coming into the system. As we said, there might need to be some additional regulation with algorithms becoming prevalent also in shorter markets. The exchange might need to take measures to keep the infrastructure up to date. And let's keep in mind that when we talk about the exchange, that's a bit reductive. We have like the various trading venues like exchanges, FX, Nord Pool, ETPA, but then you have like a big engine behind it, right? Like you have XBIT, that is hosted in Deutsche Börse. So you have like a lot of like moving parts, a lot of parties that really need to make sure that their infrastructure is ready for an increasing number of algorithms. Everyone is aware of these challenges and they're working towards solutions. But I think, we should just keep an eye out to see how all of these pieces progress. So more flexibility on the system to enable also more renewables to come on and keep the system stable, better framework or better infrastructure to support more algorithms coming in.
Thank you. And what advice would you then give to companies entering energy markets today?
So I said earlier, right, that there are already too many parties. Well,
Yeah.
it's
But
not too many.
I guess this will never stop at some point. Yeah. So
Yeah. So, yeah, and I mean, I'm sure you see them firsthand, right? You're the
we do.
ones
Yeah, absolutely.
supporting them accessing the market, so you see how many participants are still coming through the door. Maybe it's fine. Maybe there is space for everyone, right? But I think it's quite important to be aware that the competition is high, and you really need to know what your edge is. Like, it's not
Exactly.
anymore enough to just have a general understanding of the market, right? Like, it can be that you maybe are not a market expert, but you're very, very fast, and then you have the best technology, and then, well, that's your edge. Or, well, you're not very fast, but actually you're a very big expert on one specific market, and you understand very well weather data, and you're acting on that, or you have your own meteorologist in-house, and that's your really like winning card to take the right positions in the market. So just like be prepared to a competitive market, and be clear on what could make you win or well thrive.
Indeed, the companies really underestimate what they're setting themselves up to, and really just making them aware that, we might have an edge in this one, but have you considered all this other stuff? So yeah, it is quite a wild west out there, and just be aware of what's coming to you, right?
Yeah, I mean, on this topic, I think it's also important to really decide where you can provide value. So we are working together, right? With Quark is working together with Time2Market to access new markets. For a period, we kept that in-house. Well, at the beginning, I guess it made sense. We just had to set up in one market and get going. and that was the sole focus of the company. But then when you start really being busy with the day-to-day activity, being the best every day, then spending time trying to understand the rules and regulations and access process for markets is a bit of a waste of time, right? Unless you get someone experience that knows what to do, then there is a lot of research and trial and error that goes into that. If you are an expert in the market, well, don't waste all of your energies accessing the markets and then maybe trying to build your own algorithmic system. Just buy something off the shelf. If you're a technology expert, then well, focus on the technology,
Exactly.
on the algorithm, and maybe buy third-party forecasts without trying to make them in-house. So really decide what to focus on, unless you want to be a massive company that has everything in-house.
The fact that really we see in a lot of people underestimate the whole market access thing. And while, of course you could do it in-house, a lot of people could do it in-house, but I think what also comes into the game is really the time of figuring it out. Like, we know everything. And the second is that we don't only run with one project or two, which maybe a full-time employee could do that. We really run multiple projects simultaneously, and that's just something that that gives so much advantage. You can really get so much faster in the market, that unless you want to spend years on building your company. I mean, but today I don't think it's not really the market or the industry to do that. I suppose if you want to be in the winning game. So Eleonora, thank you for your endorsement, and we wish Habitat Energy and Quark Energy all the success in the industry. I can't wait to follow your growth and to support you where we can. And Eleonora, thank you once again.
Thank you, Eszter. Have a good day.